Very good. Ma'am, very good evening. Vishnu?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yeah, very good evening, ma'am. How are you?
Very good evening. I'm fine. How are you?
Sorry, we just finished our one webinar series just 1 minute back only and just logged into this. So,
oh my goodness.
From my side.
Back-to-back programs?
Yeah, ma'am. It went very well around 22 countries. Representatives were there from different parts of the globe, and we just started that series today. So just finished 1 minute back only and just entered into this.
Wonderful. So the same topics as we have done now?
Pardon, ma'am?
The same topics, the one which we are doing.
Same topics, ma'am. Same topics. Yeah, say almost same topics we have started for those colleagues also, ma'am.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
So around 22 countries focusing on South Asian countries and African countries, they were there, ma'am. Because this is the focus of, you remember we have done our GDC fellowship program also. So GDC has, we told them that there is an opportunity, why not we can expand this to other countries. So they said, we want to join hands with you. So this is again complimentary we have started for those parties. And we were not doing that, such a great response will come and 350 colleagues from 22 countries would join. So
excellent.
Today was the first session. Yeah.
Wonderful. Excellent.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So how many participants are we expecting today?
I think, ma'am, there will be around 260.
Oh.
Yeah.
Number. I can see 125, 27 now. Good one. So the other webinars also went well?
Yeah, ma'am, other webinars also went very well, ma'am. We are getting the feedbacks also. There are certain feedbacks which are coming up, but people are asking more questions and that is good. And there are some things which they want us to elaborate more. So we are collating all those feedbacks based upon these webinars, how we can strengthen ourselves in future. So that our team at the back is working. And we are going to prepare the individual webinar-wise report also, and sharing those feedbacks to the individual faculty also. If there are pertinent feedbacks which need some elaboration on the topics or some deletions of the topics or something. So also we are going to share with the individual respective faculty also, because that is the way that you can strengthen yourself and modify yourself.
Definitely, yeah, and it has to be need-based. Only then
it has to be need-based, ma'am. Yeah, though for us this is a first-time trial, but people are really appreciating it, and I'm not saying that this is one of the best, but there is a huge scope to modify it.
Yeah, true. That's true. That is true. Yeah.
So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the day 6 of e-workshop series on COVID-19. If you have any questions related to the session, please put it up in the Q&A section. There is a Q&A section down below where you can put all of your questions regarding the session. There will be a Q&A round after the session. And if you have any issues regarding the audio and video of the webinar, please put it up in the chat box, the normal chat box. Our IT support is there to help you on that. Thank you. Now over to Dr. Sandeep. Thank you.
Very good evening to all the colleagues, those who have joined from the different parts of our country today. And thank you to Dr. Indu Oneja. She's our today eminent faculty for the topic, and the topic is none other than but the communication with patient families, motivation and motivating healthcare system. About Dr. Indu Oneja, our association with Dr. Indu Oneja is huge. That she is a great ambassador of Public Health Foundation of India. She is the visiting professor for Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and she is the visiting professor of Delhi Judiciary Academy, as well as Maulana Azad Medical College, visiting professor of Delhi University and Indira Gandhi Open University. university lead faculty for Creating 21 Century Leadership, have conducted more than 1,500 healthcare professionals communication workshops around 1,100 corporate hospitals, an external assessor for NQAS, NAPH assessor, Dale Carnegie Institute trained in CBT and CDT therapist, and she's having her own institute also, that is Indian Institute of Healthcare Communication. She's the director for that. Today, why we have chosen this particular topic, the reason for this particular topic is that there are a lot of myths, and we should be very, very clear cut that what information we should absorb and what information we should not absorb at all, because such type of pandemic situations creates a lot of information flow. And since we have a Google Doctor available in everybody's mobile now, this Google Doctor is giving you much more information than a normal doctor also. So instead of going to the direct diagnosis, we always enter into differential diagnosis more because of the Google Doctor teaching to us. So I think communication is a key player in such type of pandemic situation, and we have to very much upfront in motivating our healthcare professionals who are acting as a healthcare warriors, frontline workers during this COVID-19 pandemic. There are multiple things which are coming up. That is, there is a great lockdown versus great depression. Whether this lockdown situation is going to create a depression, there are huge talks going on that the household violence have increased because of this lockdown also. Instead of people should use this opportunity to do the creative work, because the work which we never got the opportunity to do because of the lack of time. This is an opportunity where we can, with positive attitude, we can do wonders. Giving you, before I will hand it over to Dr. Indu Arneja, I just want to give you the updates upon the Indian statistics about COVID-19 today. We have already crossed the 11,000 mark, and the number is 11,439. These are the confirmed number of cases with 337 mortality. And if you see the upsurge of cases in 24 hours, we have 1,076 cases. So cases numbers have started increasing, and there is only one medication for all of us to save from this particular thing is social vaccine. And social vaccine is none other than but social distancing and isolation, quarantine. That is what our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi ji, is pressing this particular concept. And that's why India, as compared to the other countries which started lockdown situation in the later stages, they have become the big sufferers. And that's why the second lockdown has been announced by the Honorable Prime Minister, and it is there till 3rd of May now. We would request all of you utilize this opportunity and try to develop the positive attitude and the spread among your colleagues, among your workers, because you people are our major frontline warriors. Act as a fighters, not act as a spectators only. So with this, I will hand it over to Dr. Indu Arneja, madam, to take over the today's session. Over to you, madam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhalla. Welcome, participants. Give me a minute to share this screen with all of you. Okay, just 1 second. Okay, so is this visible to everybody?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So very rightly said by Dr. Bhalla that this is a pandemic which we had never thought of, which we never honestly even prepared for, but it has something like unforeseen come to us, and we really need to face it like warriors and see whatever best we can do in our capacity. I understand that this is something that we had actually never dreamt of, honestly. And I was reading somewhere that every 100 years there is a situation like this, and we are the one who are now facing it. But definitely when we come out of it, we will definitely feel that we are far more grown with this experience and knowledge, because always challenging times are the times when we actually grow and we extend our abilities and we learn new things and we do new things. So I'm sure when we come out of it, we'll be able to, when we look back at it, we will actually feel very good about it, that in this period of time we could actually meet this situation right into the eyes. No doubt that emotions are very high. The kind of, number of deaths we are hearing across the world, it's very alarming. It's very sad. It's actually very overwhelming for all of us, and everybody is keeping their fingers crossed that this shouldn't happen to us or in our country. But at this moment, I think we all have to get ready for the situation, and we really need to equip ourselves with extraordinary clinical and communication skills. I'm constantly listening to a number of webinars happening across the globe, and I really get to see the kind of clinical skills people are really experimenting with and they are working on. Similarly, people are working on their communication skills because there's a realization that that's another important aspect of learning that we really need to have. In challenging times, communication plays a very, very big role, especially if you consider now your communication with your team members, people who are working with you. It could be the doctors working with you, it could be the nurses working with you, or your support staff, or even the general public that you are coming across. And this is going to actually make a sea change, because communication can make it or break it. So your communication with your team, if it is appropriate, if it is good, naturally there will be altogether a different environment that you will create for your team. Similarly, your communication with patient and general public also will play a very big role. So we can divide our communication in actually majorly 3 parts. One, communication that we make with the patients and their family. Second, communication is that you make with your team and your staff members. And third, communication is your communication with the general public and media. Definitely, there's another aspect of communication that you need to really be careful about, and that is your communication with your family member, because it has direct impact on their mental health as well as on your mental health. So a lot of this communication requires deeper understanding of human behavior and how people normally react in stressful situations. So similarly, when you will be dealing with your patients and their families, you realize that they are not in their normal self. They'll be more anxious, more worrisome, not ready to listen or not ready to agree with what you say, and they may even become aggressive at some of these situations. Similarly, when you deal with your staff and with your subordinates, you will see that you'll have to actually keep their morale high by actually staying motivated in this situation. The moment your energy level will go down, trust me, your staff is going to equally get affected. And similarly, your communication with the general public and media would again play a big role, because any loose talk or any casual word said in front of them can create havoc. So we really need to be very, very careful about this communication. Now, coming to your communication with your patients and their families, let's take an example. In case if there's a patient or a family that requires quarantine, and the moment you will say that you need to go for quarantine, the chances are that the family or the patient will say no. That's because they will always think that no, I cannot be affected by it. They will resist actually quarantine, because to them quarantine means staying away from family, away from society, maybe something like, to their imagination, it's something like detention camp or somewhere they are going to be, thrown away. So they will actually be they'll be resisting it with a very strong this thing that I can't be sick. How can it be possible for me? I never came across anybody who traveled from outside. So maybe your report is wrong or something of this sort. They will always give. And they may also say that, okay, I'll stay at home and I will take all possible precautions. So this is nothing but actually the denial to the disease. Usually when patients or their family act like this, we have a tendency to become angry and become aggressive with them. So this is the time we have to consciously, mindfully make sure that we are firm with them, but we are not aggressive with them. Because we need to understand that this denial to disease happens to everybody. For example, I was listening to one of the news day before yesterday. It was about one of the health secretaries of Madhya Pradesh, where in spite of having corona positive, she said, I'm working well and I'm doing well and I'll stay at home and I'll do it. I'm sure she must be managing also. But this is the amount of denial people would have. So to deal with this, we got to understand that being aggressive will not help. So then question comes, how do we deal with this? Because ultimately anybody who has to be put in quarantine or has to be put in isolation or has to be admitted in the hospital, it has to be done. So we have to make sure that we are able to help them see the benefits of quarantine, and also help them understand the risk involved in case if we don't follow the guidelines. Now here, if you will try to tell them that the harm that they can do to the society or to people around, trust me, honestly, this doesn't work well. So what we got to help them see is the harm they can do to their family members, especially the kids and elderlies at home. If you can help them understand how their elderlies are at more risk, or how they can harm their kids, probably that will make sense to them, and that will strike the right chord, and that is where they are more likely to listen to you. So use of data or the reports that you have will actually help you support your document, and if you can share all that with them, they'll actually be convinced with your this thing. So we need to have patience to deal with it without being aggressive. We got to help them understand the risk that they can or harm they can do to their family or to others around them, and that can help them help them understand. So there are a set of communication skills that will really come handy at this kind of situation, and not dealing only with this patient but any stressful situation. These are set of communication skills I have mentioned here. I'll be discussing each one of them briefly for your understanding. For example, let's understand our usual communication style. So we all have a very set pattern of communicating, which we normally use in our day-to-day life. And even in stressful situations, that communication style is more likely to come to the surface than otherwise. For example, some of us can be passive communicators. So when I say passive communicator, I mean, usually we have a tendency to withdraw, to not to participate much, to not to talk much, to not to divulge much information in a situation. So if we have a tendency to become a passive communicator, and especially in stressful situation, the chances are that there is a set communication that we really need to make, either with the patient or their family, or even with our staff members. And if I'm not making that a legitimate amount of communication with them, there will be a communication gap. There will be assumptions that maybe I'm not interested, maybe I'm not very responsible, maybe I'm not taking interest, maybe I'm not acting very responsible. So passive communication in general life, of course, there also it is counterproductive, but the stressful situation, if you stay to be passive communicator, that is the risk involved in that situation. Second type of communication, there can be people who can be passive aggressive. Now, passive aggressive communicator kind of people would be people, in case if they are not happy with the things happening around them, they may not come out open. They may not voice their difference of opinion or their opinion, but they will stay aggressive inside. So what happens when you are passive aggressive? You may not say anything outright, but internally you're not agreeing with what is happening or what is being done. So maybe one would not cooperate, one would not happily participate, one would not give 100%, one may even talk negative, or one may even complain or blame, and you will come across people with this kind of communication style around you. So as a doctor, as a treating doctor, or as a leader in the team situation, if your communication style is passive aggressive, then chances are that you will not be directly handling it, but you will be indirectly kind of complaining or blaming or finding fault, or you will be using a wrong tone of voice, or maybe sarcastic in your approach. Third communication style that some of us might depict or may demonstrate is aggressive communication style, where we have a tendency to come out in a very rude and harsh way. There's a possibility that we might use aggressive words, aggressive tone, or aggressive body language. We may snub people, we may shout at people, we may use foul language in our communication. Now, in this stressful situation, if we have a tendency to use any of these three kind of communication, these are all going to be counterproductive, not very helpful in stressful situation. Being team leader, you really need to have a right kind of communication where your message goes across well, your team understands what you want, and then there is no blame game or kind of hide and seek kind of a game. So for that kind of communication, we really need to have a assertive kind of communication style, which is appropriate. And in stressful situation, actually this is the only right way of communication. And not only in stressful situation, I think even in your day-to-day life, assertion is the right way of communicating. You may have to say something which is very probably not easily accepted. For example, when you're asking a patient to go for quarantine and the patient is not agreeing, so you can't just agree with your patient, and that is the time where you need to assert. Or maybe when you're assigning duty to your staff, and some of them may show up, some of them may refuse to agree with your duty roster that you prepare. So that will be the time where you will need to assert. Or maybe people from, voluntary organization or from different departments, they may want to come and participate with you, and you think that will not help or that is not a good idea. So these are the situations where you have to communicate something which is difficult and harsh. But this is where your assertion will come in place. So any communication has three parts. Part one is your language, part two is your tone of voice, and part three is your body language. So when you assert, your selection of word has to be appropriate. Your tone of voice has to be firm, but it should not be rude or authoritative. And your body language should be appropriate. So let's understand what should be the language. So when you are communicating with people and you want to use assertive communication style, you have to use simple language. Even in the hardest of times, we have to be respectful and decent with people. This is the time we got to actually demonstrate the right leadership skills, where we don't become disrespectful or indecent with people because of being, in stressful situation. So you have to consciously stay calm and speak slowly. So usually when we are unhappy, annoyed, or aggressive, we have a tendency to use, wrong words and also speak loudly. So if you really train your mind, even in the hardest situations, to stay calm and speak slowly. So when you speak slowly, the same words have a different impact on the person who is listening to you. Another good guideline that I can suggest you here is that listen more and speak less to save on energy. In the previous webinar also, I shared this experience that the other day I received a phone call from one of the, group of people who are managing the control room, where they're attending around 1,000 calls in a day. Of course, there are 8 to 10 people who are attending round the clock. So attending 1,000 calls is a very, very challenging task. So one of them called and they said that in one day itself, we have lost all our energy and we are really, really, tired of this. So how do we, deal with it? So one advice that I gave to them, that most of the people who are calling you, they're basically panicking, they're anxious, or they may have some questions to ask. So rather than speaking, develop this tendency to listen to them. One, when you will listen to their problem, they will feel comfortable that there is somebody who's listening to me. And then you can also have your notepad on your side. So when you're listening to them, so whatever important thing that you think you need to respond to, you can make a note of that keyword. And then at the end of what they have said, you can pick up those relevant words and then answer those specific questions and satisfy them. So the thumb rule is 80% listening and 20% talking. We have a tendency to talk more, but as a result, you are going to lose all your energy. So imagine it is just the beginning of the whole situation. I don't know for how long this is going to go on. So really, really, we need to save on energy. And for that, I would always suggest that develop this habit of listening more and speaking less. It could be with your staff, it could be with your patient, it could be with your family members. Another thing that I would request you to develop in your way of interacting with people is, please avoid snubbing in others. When we are in the authority position, we have a tendency to snub others. But at this time, it is not you alone managing the situation. It is the team whose cooperation is utmost important to you. So if you will snub them, if you will shout at them, they'll get discouraged, they'll get demoralized, they'll actually stop offering services. So we really got to make sure that we don't snub our subordinates. It could be your nurses, it could be your housekeeping staff, it could be even volunteers, it could be people from different departments. So we have to consciously avoid snubbing others. And at the same time, we don't have to be arrogant and rude and authoritative in this situation. As I said earlier also, this is going to flare up aggression on both these sides. It's going to affect your mental health, and also it is going to affect the mental health of people around you. Now, some of you may be managing your situation very well, and you can see everybody will be working, participating in a very calm and cool manner. But some of us who have an aggressive communication style, you will see across that people who are working with you will feel stressed out. They will also react aggressively. Some may actually just absorb it, but some might give it back, retaliating in an aggressive way. So very consciously, we have to stay calm and not act arrogant and rude with them. Second part of communication is your tone of voice. One is language, second is paralanguage. So the quality of your communication, which includes your pitch of voice, volume, your speed of speaking, the quality of your voice and intonation, everything is part of paralanguage. So like words have an impact, your paralanguage has equally and more impact. Communication is not what you say, but how you say. Same thing said in a rude tone will have a different impact. Same thing said in a softer tone will have a different impact. For example, somebody is standing in the ward in the corner and you see that gentleman standing for no reason. And if you look at that person and say in a shouting tone and say, why are you standing here? What do you want? And instead of this, if I say the same thing in a manner, yes, gentlemen, what do you want? Tell me, how can I help you? Same words, but different impact. So very consciously, you will have to make sure that it is not just the words, but also the way you deliver those words would have an impact. So very, very carefully, you have to make sure when you're interacting with your staff or with patients or with general public, of course, you have to be firm. But at the same time, you have to be non-aggressive, because aggression gets fueled with aggression. So it is not the other person who will be communicating, other person would be just giving you kind of response to your communication. So in public dealing, especially, we have to be well modulated in the way we communicate. We have to be confident, but we have to be non-aggressive. So as I said, you have to be soft, but you have to be soft but audible. Many a times when we speak something and the other person does not understand because you spoke it at a softer, softer tone, we have to understand one thing: the instructions that you're going to give to your staff or the information that you're going to give to your patients or their family, that is all probably something very new they are not familiar with. So if you speak at a higher speed, or if you are very soft, they will not understand. Chances are either they will not understand and do what they understand, or they may ask you to repeat. So make sure when you're talking to them, you should be soft, but you should be audible. So match your speed of talking with the understanding speed of the person. And if you look at the facial expression of the person who is listening to you or is talking to you, you can very well make out whether the person has been able to actually understand what you have just said. So we have to make sure that whatever you are saying is well understood by the other person. So usually in this stressful period, we have a tendency to use high pitch, high tone voice. We have a tendency to shout, and especially if we are in authority position, we feel we are hard pressed. So we have all right to shout at people. But I have two things to tell you. Probably this is the real test of your integrity, your maturity, and your wisdom. If you are able to stay calm even in this stressful time, trust me, that shows how strong you are inside out. And there's another saying, what is inside comes out during stressful period. For example, if I squeeze a lemon, what would come out? If I squeeze an orange, what will come out? If I squeeze an orange juice will come out. If I squeeze a lemon, lime would come out. Similarly, in stressful period, what is inside us will come out. If we are really peaceful inside, if you're really wise inside, if you're really calm inside, that is what would come out. Especially with your team, please make sure that you are not using high pitch, high tone voice. This has to be actually consciously learned and practiced and demonstrated. So I'm making a lot of emphasis on communication tone. As I said, check your tone. 10% of the conflicts are because of the wrong words. 90% of the conflicts are because of the wrong tone of voice. So please make sure that you use appropriate tone of voice. So I have just listed down the features of appropriate tone of voice and inappropriate tone of voice. For example, a tone of voice that is sincere, that is serious, that actually is demonstrating the seriousness of the situation. Tone of voice that is responsible. So when somebody asks me something and I am responding responsibly, using the right word, the right way, that shows that I'm acting responsible. Confident. Confidence comes with knowledge. I would like to spend little time about confidence. every day information is being updated, protocols are changing, strategies are being revised. So you really need to be well versed with what is happening in your system. If you are aware of them, anytime if somebody will ask you, for example, if your subordinate asks you something, or your teammate asks you something, or a patient asks you something, if you are aware of all those changes or you are updated with the latest information, there will be a different level of confidence in your communication. But if you're not sure, if you're confused, if you're not updated, actually it will be visible, it will be depicted in your communication. With all this, you need to be soft and polite and assertive. So an inappropriate tone of voice will be casual when you are not answering in a very sincere manner. If your tone of voice indicates disinterest or unconcerned, or I am not bothered, it will be visible in your communication. In confidence, if you are not updated, and anywhere if you are rude or authoritative or you are aggressive, that's going to spoil the communication. How much ever important message you are giving, but if you are rude and authoritative and aggressive, trust me, people will not take in the right spirit. Especially you have to earn cooperation of your people. You cannot afford to be rude and authoritative with them. They have to give their 100%. We want 200% cooperation from our people. That cannot be earned through aggression. We have discussed about the words, then we have discussed about the tone of voice. The third part of communication is your body language. You'll be surprised to know that only 7% of the communication happens through words. 38% of communication happens through tone of voice, and 55% of your communication is through your body language. Mostly we are not very careful about body language. For example, our facial expression. If you are carrying expression of anger, irritability, unhappiness, or negative attitude, that's going to be visible on your face. That's going to communicate far more than your words. So please make sure that you have appropriate facial expressions when you are interacting with the patient or with your team member. For example, anywhere if you kind of communicate that I am unhappy with this situation, or I am unhappy with your work, that's going to be visible on your face, and the other person will immediately be able to read it right away. Another important communication that we make is through eye contact. So when we don't make eye contact and talk with the people, people read it as though we are not interested, or we are not very concerned about them, or we don't really mean what we are saying. So when you are communicating either with the patient or with their family member or even with your team member, please make sure that you make eye contact. So when you make eye contact with the person with whom you are talking, you are communicating that I'm confident of what I'm saying, or I mean it, or I'm talking to you, so you got to listen to me carefully. So making eye contact with the person with whom you're talking is very, very important. So when you're interacting with your staff, and when you make eye contact and tell them what you exactly want to say, it has a bigger impact on the person. Similarly, when you make eye contact, you also get to see whether the other person has actually understood what you exactly mean. So if the person appears confused, or person appears lost, person appears anxious, you get to understand that the person is not listening to what you're saying. So when you are, or for example, when you're explaining the condition to the patient or their family, we have to make sure that we use simple words. We have to make sure that they are able to understand. If you are using any technical words, or you are trying to explain them in some medical language, trust me, they will not be able to understand. For example, just to explain the point, if you are explaining to your patient about their lung condition, if you can show them one X-ray with the normal lung condition, and then the second X-ray of the patient with the present lung condition of the patient, it will be easy for them to understand what exactly you mean to say when you say that the lung condition is not healthy. So use all possible audiovisual aids, use all possible ways to explain to the patient or their family, or even with your staff. If there are certain procedures that you want to tell them, they don't know, but if you can use some video, some audiovisual aid, demonstrate how to do it, they'll understand it better. They'll have a lot of questions to ask you. So when you tell them about their diagnosis or something about the illness, they'll have a lot of questions to ask you. Maybe in stressful period, we might think that I can't answer all the questions. I understand that. But some of the pertinent questions will have to be asked. At the same time, I can suggest you something. We can also make a list of frequently asked questions by the patients. And if we can have some standardized answers prepared for that, let every team member know those answers. So the responsibility of answering those questions will not primarily lie on the treating doctor. So all team members, maybe the nurses and the other staff who are there, if they know the exact answer to the question, they can all understand, learn, and also, kind of share the responsibility of clarifying, because patients and the family would have a lot of questions to ask. They need to be addressed. They need to be answered. So here, another important skill that will come handy is listening. So many a times when somebody is talking, we have a tendency to kind of sometimes ignore what they are saying or pretend that we are listening, but actually we are doing something more important than that what we think the other person is saying. Or sometimes we have selective listening. We listen to only specific things and rest of the things we kind of ignore completely. Let me reiterate here, a lot of patient's information is going to come if you listen to your patient and their family. Lot of information we get to hear from them. So that will be helpful in treating the patient. Second thing is when we listen to them, and especially if we are able to practice attentive listening, reflective listening, and empathetic listening, that will help in winning patients' confidence. That will also communicate that we are understanding what you are saying. So when you practice attentive listening, you demonstrate that, yes, I'm listening to you. So when you make eye contact, when you look towards the person when the person is talking, or when you're nodding in agreement that, yes, I'm understanding. So you are actually demonstrating attentive listening. Similarly, they may also come out with some emotional, expression. So that is the time to kind of, accept that, understand that, and then communicate that, yes, I understand. It is very difficult time for all of us. So listening, although we have a tendency to do most of the talking, but if you do listening, one, it will save you a lot of energy, and it will also help you build rapport with people with whom you are working or with the patients that you are working with. Let's remember one thing. In this period, in this stressful period, the word corona itself is very scary, and it actually brings out a very different, reaction to the diagnosis. Oh, you are corona positive. So let me share my experience. It was around not 15 days ago, almost a month ago. It was around 14th or 15th of March. I had almost the same symptoms of corona. I had, a very severe sore throat, absolutely no rhinitis or any nasal symptom, and I had fever and also had, difficulty breathing. So for a minute, I thought it is corona. I mean, all symptoms look like corona. And trust me, I even called my, husband's friend who's a physician, and I talked to him and I said, it looks like corona to me. So he said, it's all right, let's not panic. Let's start with the course of antibiotic. And if it doesn't respond, or in case if there is some change in the situation, then we will think of, investigating further. But trust me, those 3-4 days when I was taking antibiotic, I was actually looming under a very big fear, and that was fear of death. Being in the medical profession, if all of us get scared with the thought that I might get infected with corona, just imagine the patient and their family state of mind. This might sound theoretical, but trust me, when we actually tell them you're corona positive, the whole family fears death. So it's very important to understand what they are going through. So empathy is another important virtue that we all need to develop. And it's not just for Corona, I'm saying that we need to have this virtue. Anybody who is in healthcare need to see things from patient's point of view. It's very heartening to be a patient. And all those of you who have ever been a patient or who have ever been a patient's attendant, you would understand how difficult it is to be a patient or to be in the patient's attendant position. Because when you are able to see things from the patient's point of view, you are able to see the world through their eyes. You will not be judgmental. Even when they act anxious, or they don't listen to you, or they don't agree with you, you will not be annoyed with them. You will understand anybody would act like this. You will understand their feelings. You will communicate with greater understanding. So your communication will automatically have an element of empathy. Your communication will automatically have an element of compassion, care, concern. All this might sound theoretical to some of you, but trust me, once you will have this inbuilt in your communication, it's not going to take extra time. It's just the change of mind. It's just the intention to have this in your communication. The moment this will come in our communication, trust me, patient will have a lot of gratitude towards us. And honestly, the kind of aggression we have all been receiving in the last few years that I have been hearing of, I think this is one virtue we have to really focus on if we want to trust, if you want to win their trust and develop good rapport with them. So we need to really address their anxiety and fear. We usually focus majorly on the medical management of the illness. But honestly, we have to address anxiety and fear without giving any false hope. I'm not saying that give any unrealistic kind of expectation to them or hope to them. But at the same time, if I can communicate whatever best is possible, is being done, we shall do, that itself will alleviate their anxiety, that whatever possible is being done for my patient. So when you're updating the patient or their family about the patient's condition, because there will be chances when you'll have to interact with the family, tell them about how is the patient's condition. I'm sharing some protocol with you that will help you in handling the situation. For example, you need to be straightforward, but at the same time, you need to be sensitive. So when you're talking about patient's condition going serious, so we got to tell it, but we got to be sensitive when we are telling this. We don't have to soften the blow. Sometimes we try to soften the blow, but that will create vagueness and confusion. So we don't have to minimize the severity. If the reality is that the patient's condition is serious, we have to be honest. But at the same time, we have to be sensitive when we are breaking the news. So in between, when you are communicating, if you pause and allow them to ask a question, or you allow them to understand what they are saying, or allow them to even give their non-verbal expression, that will help them, understand that you are empathizing with them. They take time to assimilate something that you say. For example, if you say condition is serious, or we will not be able to save the patient, or the patient is no more. For example, you have to break this bad news that the patient is no more. So this comes as a shock. So they may not even accept it or believe it. So when you pause in between, they'll get little time to assimilate the information that you're sharing. So again, when you're sharing the information, please use simple language, as simple as possible. Avoid all technical or medical jargon. They will not understand, and that will create confusion. So use reports, use audiovisual aids, use ways to explain them to support your point and help them see the reality. Check for understanding. Many times they are so confused that they will not understand what you're saying. And this, in your other experience also, you may have seen, you explain them everything and at the end they say, Doctor Sahab, bach to jayenge na, Doctor Sahab, theek to ho jayenge na. That means clearly they have not understood what exactly you are saying. So you really need to make sure that they exactly understand what you mean to say. In between, being silent for a while, again, a good way of communicating your empathy or care, concern, compassion. It's not very long. I'm not saying to be silent for 5 minutes. It's just for few seconds. But when you become silent, they understand that you're giving them time to assimilate. You're being with them. Again, here your body language will play a very big role. The way you sit, the way you look at them, the stiffness of your neck, facial expression, everything would be communicating. So make sure that you use appropriate body language, because that is what going to communicate your care, concern, and compassion to them. So usually the patient or the family would react in a very typical manner. For example, they may actually be shocked with the news. They may not believe what you are saying. So as a result, they'll be in denial. As I said, the moment you'll say that you have to go for quarantine, they'll not believe you. They will not agree with you. They may doubt your reports. They may doubt your screening. So that's a very usual response. We do not believe that this has happened with me. Second is they may be angry with you, with system, with life, with God. They'll be very unhappy. For example, let's take an example of a patient who came to your hospital for some treatment, for example, some surgery or for some, other medical element. And unfortunately, the patient acquired corona. And now when you have tested the patient and patient is corona positive, and when you break this news to the patient that you have corona, you can imagine the unhappiness that the patient would have, or the blaming attitude that the patient will have, or the anger that the patient would have. So that's a very natural response that the patient or family would have against us. Then the third would be bargaining. For example, the patient has developed symptoms, but the patient wants to stay at home. So they may bargain to stay at home. Or the patient is admitted under your care. The patient, it's a private setup, and the patient says, doctor, spend as much money you want, or buy as many medicines you want, or whatever possible can be done. Please get it done. I'm ready to spend any amount of money. This is nothing but it is coming out of bargaining. The patient is actually, patient of the family is bargaining with us. The inner feeling is, please save my patient. Please save my patient at any cost. I'm ready to pay anything for it. Once they realize that things are not okay, then comes the time that they start feeling low. It's the beginning of acceptance. They start feeling hopeless. They start feeling helpless. And that's the time they may suddenly probably become quiet. And then finally, they would actually accept the reality. So this is a psychological response, which is called DABDA: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. It's called DABDA. It's a very natural response. Everybody goes through more or less similar response to this situation. The question is, how do we deal with it? So denial, then the patient or the family is in denial. It has to be responded with information. So maybe that's the time I have to show the reports. Maybe this is the time I have to explain them the patient's condition. Then is anger. When the person is angry, rather than responding with anger, I would rather stay a little calm, listen to them, allow the person to say what they want to say. Most of the times, once they have spoken, they have ventilated their emotion, they are more likely to calm down. So this is the time I need to help them understand the reality. So I don't have to give tit for tat. The tendency is when somebody is angry with us, we react with anger. We just need to stay calm for those few seconds. Third is bargaining. So when they are trying to say, please save my patient at any cost, I'm ready to pay anything, I'm ready to take my patient to any setup, don't get upset about it. Can money save everything? What do you think about money? Please empathize with the understanding that they are wanting to do anything to save the patient. And that's what everybody will do if we are in that position. So that's the time to look at the situation more empathetically, help them see the reality. This one statement, more than you, I would like to save the patient. I'll do my best, or I've done my best to save the patient. That would help them understand that you don't want to leave any stone unturned to save the patient. Once they are in depression or feeling low or helpless or hopeless, that is the time we have to give them the direction. For example, if they have to be put on quarantine, then we got to tell them that this is what has to be done. Or in case if we have to put the patient, we have to send the patient for admission or shift the patient to ICU. So that is where we have to help them. For example, if we have to get the consent signed by them, or ask them to agree to, move the patient to another hospital. So those directions will have to be given by us. Once they have accepted, that's the time to encourage them, to help them, now move on, to see what we have to do next. Now, there's a clinician's perspective also. It's very important to understand that it's very overwhelming for all the healthcare professionals who are directly involved in the patient care. It's easy said than done. And I understand it's very, very emotionally exhausting and tiring for all of us. We all know that we are still very uncertain about the outcome of disease. We know that once we tell them that the condition is serious or the likelihood of patient surviving is very low, we are actually destroying the patient and the family's hope. We also feel inadequate in the face of uncontrollable disease. At the same time, sometimes we are not even prepared for the unanticipated emotional reactions. I'm sure at certain places where we are receiving aggressive reactions from the patient's family, in spite of doing our best to save the patient. We feel bad about it, that how could they react like this, or how could they behave like this? But we got to understand that they are not behaving towards us, they are behaving towards outcome. And then sometimes when you have painted a very optimistic picture, you feel bad about it. For example, this physician of mine whom I called on phone and I told him that the symptoms look like corona, and is it corona? And he said, no, I don't think you need to worry so much. So you take this course of antibiotic. Suppose if it had turned corona, I'm sure I would have been very unhappy with him, and even he would have been very embarrassed to have given a very this kind of response to me. Similarly, I'm sure many relatives or friends or acquaintances of yours may be calling you and asking you, is it corona? Could it be corona? Should I get tested? So in case if any time any one of us have given a very optimistic picture, or no, nothing will happen, or you are young, you will not get affected by it. Like we also know that a lot of us may get infected with corona and may not actually have very serious symptoms. But if we paint such kind of picture, and unfortunately the patient becomes serious or has condition becomes critical, it becomes very embarrassing for us. So how do we prevent this from happening? One, we know that we are still uncertain about the outcome of the disease. So I would request all of you to stay updated with the protocols that are being given by your system. And when you're talking to the patient and the family, please give realistic expectation, make the situation very, very clear to them. I know when we have to tell the reality to the patient, we feel that we are going to destroy their hope. But at the same time, we got to understand that we got to prepare them for eventuality. The thumb rule is promise less and deliver more. And when we promise more and deliver less, then it becomes difficult to handle. So it's better to promise less and deliver more. But at this moment, we don't have to be emotional, but we got to tell them in a very, very honest manner. Yes, we all know that we are still not able to find the exact treatment or prevention. We got to understand the professional limitations. I know all across the globe, a lot of research is going on. And with time to come, we will find some solution to the problem. When it comes to dealing with the unanticipated emotional reactions, one, please keep the family updated on regular basis. This will help you in two ways. One, it will help them get prepared for the news, whatever the news is. And also it will give you a chance to read their possibility of emotional reaction. So like we have learned medical triage, we have to learn social triage. So social triage is identify people who can react adversely, who can react in an aggressive manner in this situation. So if you interact with them on regular basis, meet them, talk to them, observe their body language, you'll get a chance to see how they might react. So they're probably interacting with them more often will help you building rapport and also answering their questions and preparing them for the eventuality. So again, not to be embarrassed on what picture we have given. it's good if we give them realistic expectations so that they're prepared for the eventuality. Last but not the least, please, please, please document all communications. In the crisis hours, we might think that we are communicating at verbal level, but trust me, we don't know how many of us are going to be sued after this pandemic is over. So please make sure that you document all the communications that you make with the patient and their family. The thumb rule is document what you communicate and communicate what you document. Once you break the bad news, the patient and the family will be very anxious and they may also feel lost. So this is the time to establish a plan, whatever plan of treatment that you are going to adopt. Treat their current symptoms, explain this plan of action to the patient and the family so that they know what is going to be done next. Arrange for appropriate referral in case if the patient has to be moved to the other hospital. Give the contact details wherever the patient is going to be transferred, and reassure them that they are not going to be abandoned. It's only the level of care is going to be changing. Some important communication tips, especially in public dealing, when you're dealing with the general public and with the media people, please make sure that, and not only with them, even with your own staff, no loose talk, no comments against any religion or community, no blame game, choose your words carefully, mind your body language because all that communicates a lot. Consciously stay calm because everybody is observing you. Everybody is observing you. So you got to be very careful about your, overall behavior. Have an attitude of, being helpful and positive attitude, because that has to be communicated in general to everybody to create good work environment. Now, I'm sure there must be some mental health issues, not only with the patient, but with the team with whom you're working, and even all of you who are directly handling this situation or facing this situation. So many of you may be actually having thoughts of anger, where you may be feeling that this is not fair, I don't deserve this, why am I here in this situation? We don't even have enough PPE, there are not even enough ventilators. In case a lot of patients require ventilators, what will we do? Or we are going to run out of medicine, or we are already running out of medicine, or why can't they provide more facilities? Why can't they see what we need in our place of work? But do they know what kind of situation we are facing? Or some of us may be overwhelmed with the volume and the acuity of the situation, because this is something which is again beyond our imagination. Then we also may have fear of infection, that we might get infected. We may also be missing our family and friends, especially if we are doing long hours of duty, or we are not even with our family and friends who are not who may be in the different place or different state, or we are not even going to stay with them, or maybe the long duty hours and the overall exhaustion may be bothering you. Some of you may be angry about being unprepared for this situation, may feel frustrated over lack of supplies, and may also, some of us may even have guilt over inability to save all, because we know, especially when we get to hear news about when the ventilators are falling short, the doctors in the other countries, they have to actually make a call which patient should be put on a ventilator and which we will have to do away with. So these are these issues that can actually be very, very overwhelming. So I have 2-3 guidelines to give you, which I'm sure will help you. One important thing that I want to tell you, that this is the concept given by Stephen Covey, who's written this book called 7 Habits of Effective People. And it's a wonderful concept, a very helpful concept. See, we all have 2 circles. If you see this yellow circle, which is bigger one, this will have all the things that are true, but they are not in your control. For example, the number of patients that are going to come to us, or the kind of situations tomorrow that we may have to face, or whatever is going to happen. So they are all true. Those concerns are very true, but these are the things that are not in your control, or in anybody, or at least not in your control. Then there's an inner circle, which is blue in color, and that is things that are in your control. So very carefully, we have to focus all our attention on the inner circle that is blue in color. That is things that I have in my control. For example, your attitude, your actions, your words, your efforts, your clothes, your behavior, your interaction with your patients, your interaction with the team that you are working with, that is completely in your control. So the whole agenda here has to be, what can I do to deal with this situation? So very proactively, with very with clarity of mind, we have to focus all our energy, time and efforts on the inner circle, which is smaller in size. And that is what can actually help us sail through the situation. Finding others' fault, blaming others, blaming system, blaming the state, blaming government, blaming other countries, all that is not, even if that is true, that is not going to help us. So very carefully, please keep your attention on the inner circle, where you know, these are the things that are in my control and I can handle them directly. Then also I want to give you some important tips, very practical, to the point, which can directly help you. And trust me, 70 to 80% of your stress can be looked after if you can follow these following things. 1, please catch 6 to 8 hours of sleep. After your duty, whatever time is available to you, please take enough sleep, take enough rest. Sleep is biological need. All your mental and physical wear and tear takes place during sleep. So it's important to catch 6 to 8 hours of sleep. All your even emotional issues will get resolved. The stress that you will sleep will have a lot of answers in the morning. So it's very important to catch 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Some of you may not be able to get these many hours of sleep at one go. So my advice to you would be, even if you have to do it in 2 shifts, it's all right. In 2 breaks, that's all right. But make sure that you get 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Second, 3 meals a day on a regular basis. Please do not miss your meals. Make sure that you take your food on a regular basis. We are not superhuman beings. You are going to be physically active while being on duty. You may not be even able to eat anything when you are on duty. So make sure that when you come for your duty, you take your meal, you take your proper meal when you're coming for the duty. Take all precautions, use PPE to save and protect yourself and your team. At certain places, I know there's shortage of PPE, and sometimes we think that, okay, this person is not directly taking care of the patient. So maybe if we don't give him enough or a complete PPE, that would be all right. But trust me, any team member, if he or she gets exposed to the infected material of the patient, he or she can be a carrier to the infection and can give you infection. So make sure that every team member who is involved in patient care is properly protected from the infection. Avoid unnecessary media following. I see a lot of people having their TV on 24/7. I think that's very, very unhealthy. You are just going to get more anxious with this practice. So if you have to see the news, maybe thrice in a day, 10 minutes updating is more than enough. So lot of messages, lot of protocols are being circulated. They're not even authenticated. So let's not, get involved into that. That's going to further confuse us. Then very important, that is staying connected with your loved ones. If you are going home, be in touch with your family. In case you're not going home, in case you're not able to see your family members on daily basis, please connect with them on regular basis. Talk to them, smile with them, laugh with them. That's very important. Staying positive, staying connected with your loved one is very important. They are also anxious. They're also worried about you. But if you appear anxious, if you are anxious, they're going to transfer your anxiety to them. So being connected with your loved ones, talking to them, bringing change in the mindset will actually empower you with the positive energy. See, we all release different set of chemicals the way we look at this situation. Staying calm and no negative thinking. Why I'm saying this here is, see, when you have a negative thought process, or when you are blaming, or you are complaining, or you are feeling stressed out, you release a different set of chemicals in your body. And these chemicals put us in negative gear. We are more prone to infection. We are more prone to injury. We are more prone to becoming aggressive. On the other side, if we are in the positive mindset, we release a different set of chemicals that actually improve our immunity. that protect us from infection, that protect us from injury, that protect us from being aggressive. So very, very carefully, we have to actually, set this mindset of not complaining and blaming about things and no negative thinking. So this is something that very consciously we have to kind of, acquire. I'm repeating this slide because we have a tendency to become aggressive when we are stressed out. So very mindfully, we have to stay calm and cheerful because we do not know how long this is going to go, for how long we have to face it. So we have to be very, very careful in deciding the mindset that we have towards it. So here, one thing very important that will come handy is your attitude towards your work. So I'm reminded of one story that I normally share with my audience whenever I have this slide. It's our attitude that's going to decide how we are going to work. There was a building that was being constructed, and there were laborers who were actually, working on it. So somebody who was passing by the building came to one of the laborer and asked him that, "What are you doing?" So that person, in a very simple tone, he said that, "Oh, I'm working because I'm going to get money for working here, and that money I'm going to use for my family." So some of us may be thinking that, "Oh, it's a job, so I have to do it." He went to the second laborer and he asked him that, "What are you doing?" But that person was very unhappy, very annoyed with the situation. So he literally shouted at this person and said, "Can't you see that I'm breaking stones?" So many of us may be very unhappy in this situation, thinking that, "Oh, I have a bad luck. I'm stuck here. I didn't deserve this. I didn't do anything wrong. Why am I made to face this? Why can't people see what I'm doing?" So that also can be one of the mindset. Then he went to the third laborer and he asked him, "What are you doing?" So that laborer, he took him to one side and he showed him a map. He showed him this picture and he said, "A beautiful temple is coming here and I am constructing that temple." So all three were doing the same thing, but their mindset was different. So it's a choice that we make. Many of you may be actually thinking, "Oh, it's my time to give back. Oh, it's my chance to prove my worth. Oh, this is the way I can, give my services to the nation." Please remember, even this too shall pass. It's your choice, the mindset that you want to keep here. I'm reminded of another story shared by one of the speaker of this program. He started the webinar with that story, and I really like that story, and I'm sharing once again before I end my session here. There was a jungle fire, and all animals and birds, started flying and coming out of the jungle. But one of the bird, the sparrow, she picked little water from the water body and, threw on the jungle fire. And everybody started laughing at the sparrow and said that, "Do you think this will, help extinguish the fire?" She said, "I know it's not going to extinguish the fire, but when the history will be written, I will be written as warrior and you will be written as spectator." So it's the choice that we all have to make, whether we want to be written as a warrior or as a spectator. Thank you so much. Best of luck.
Thank you, ma'am, for elaborating on this topic and make it so simple. Because communication plays a major role, as I mentioned it earlier also. If I have to summarize your talk, I can say that communication is not what you say, but how you say. That is one of the major things to learn. Our communication, whenever you're communicating in this crisis moment, you should always make eye contact. And second thing is that always use the reports to support your point, because if you don't use the reports, then it will not create any it will create a false significance on your part. And do the documentation of all the activities, whatever you are doing it in your while dealing with your COVID-19 patients, whether in care hospitals or whether in COVID-19 hospitals also. Avoid technical jargons as much as you can and use the simple language. I think you made this topic very appropriate. This topic has come at appropriate time because seeing the anxiety, seeing the anxiousness, seeing the depression because of the long lockdown, and seeing the economic loss also which is going to happen after COVID-19. There are a lot of repercussions after COVID-19 which are going to happen now in all the areas, in all the sectors. I think we all have to fight. We all have to fight as a first line warriors, not as a spectators, but we should act as a fighters. I think there are a number of questions. I would request you if you can go through it. And we are really thankful to you on behalf of PHFI for helping us. And today, this is the last session of this series. Yes. And hope that participants, all the people who have joined, they have enjoyed this series. But we are very upfront to get the critical feedbacks from all of them. Thanks to all of them also. Over to you, madam.
One more thing that I want to say here, like I know now many of us are thinking about what will happen after COVID. Again, it's our mindset. I remember Japan was completely destroyed after Hiroshima. Oh. But if we have a mindset that we can make it, we can do it, I think that's the mindset we all need to have. And not all population will have this mindset. It's only people who are educated, who have that mindset, and then they can influence masses under them. So we really need to be very positive and very, of course, a lot of hard work will have to be put into it, no doubt about it. But at the same time, we have to have a positive mindset. Only then I think we will be able to deal with the situation. So are there any questions?
Yeah, ma'am. There is a list of questions are there, ma'am.
Okay.
Vishnu, can you get the Vishnu?
Yes, I can.
It is there, ma'am. There are around 30 questions are there.
Okay. 30 questions are there, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So is this the first question, Dr. M.A. Hussain?
Yeah, Madam, that's the first question. Yeah.
Madam, what advice should be given to our parents in 70s? That's a very, very important. I think first question itself is very relevant and very important. See, again, if you have a mindset that I can do it, I shall do it, I'll come successful. The same energy has to be infused in them. And being at 70, I think even they would know very clearly, nobody would want you to sit at home like a coward. Even they would like to see you victorious. So you got to infuse them with that energy, and at the same time having, faith in Almighty. Also, if whatever precautions you are taking, whatever care you are taking, please highlight that to ensure them, to communicate to them that you are looking after yourself. Their major concern is that whatever you are doing, please look after yourself. So rather than addressing their anxiety or worry in this manner, let them know what care you are taking to protect yourself. I hope that helps, that answers your question. Dr. M. Wasim, role of communication and empathy in times of Corona. I think we have discussed this in detail, and I have tried to help you see how empathy and communication, and honestly, empathy and communication would not take much extra time. If it is the right way of communication, it would actually take lesser time. And empathy is a way which just needs to be demonstrated in your communication. It would not require any extra time. Okay. Next is communication issues for elderly family members. Now, this question is slightly this thing. Is it for the elderly family members of the patient or elderly family members of the doctors? So if it is for the doctors, I think I have already answered this question. And if it is the patients, elderly family members, again, I think we have discussed this part that we got to be honest with them and prepare them for eventuality. Let them know what the reality is. Next is how to encourage people with high risk contact or low risk contact people to stay in quarantine center during this lockdown period. Dr. Bedaji Singh. So Dr. Singh, I think I've explained you very clearly, rather than highlighting how it is going to harm the society or the nation, make it very clear to them how they are going to harm their family. So when you tell them how it is going to harm their family, they'll be better, they'll be more willing to cooperate with you. Okay, next question is, are government making some guidelines for patients who recovered from COVID-19? Dr. Pinky, I think I'm not the right person to answer this. I would request Dr. Bhalla to find the correct answer to this, and please help her.
We'll get back then. Okay.
Yeah, please. Yeah. And next question is from Sarat Babu. How to improve doctor-patient relationship generally, and then how to achieve patient trust. I think the whole presentation has been around, winning the doctor-patient relationship and also trust. I think not only for Corona, in general also, I think if you're able to, listen to them, treat them with respect, accept them as they are, rather than being judgmental or unhappy about the way they behave, you can actually communicate that you are caring for them. Sometimes when we don't listen to them, when we don't answer their questions, when we don't involve them even in decision making, they feel that the power to decide has been taken away from them, and that itself becomes very suffocating for them. Okay. How to achieve patients' trust? Again, if you are transparent, for example, if they say we want to go for second opinion, or if we want to see the case sheet, or if we want to know the protocol that you're following is appropriate, and if you allow that, they will automatically know that you are being transparent. But if we play hide and seek in that, they feel that, okay, we are not being honest with them. Then how to deal with illiterate patients in rural areas? Again, another question by Dr. Sarat Basu. Yes, communicating in the rural areas can be a little difficult, but I also feel that people in rural area, if you're able to win their trust, they are more likely to listen to you. There was a time that doctors were called like God. Maybe in urban areas, this is now less as a thought process, but in rural areas, still they trust and they, respect doctors. Only thing is we need to be cordial with them and behave properly with them. Explaining to them in their language, using audiovisual aid would help in, helping them understand whatever you are saying. Okay. Then Dr. Archana has asked a question, is there necessity of self-quarantine after recovery? Follow-up after recovery? Again, I would say I'm not the right person to answer this. Dr. Bhalla, please we'll have to, address this question. Next is
Dr. Pinky again.
Yeah, Dr. Pinky again. Government is trying all measures to control this panic-stricken situation among people, but still not able to communicate and convince completely. Why? Any suggestions from your side, ma'am? Yes, India is a very mixed, society. We have people who are very well behaved to completely ill-behaved patient. I understand that. So this kind of panic is likely to happen, especially when people don't have access to the right information and they get easily influenced by some wrong information, spread by somebody. We don't have control over it. Again, I'm talking about the yellow circle and the blue circle. I do not have control over those people who are, miscommunicating, but I have control over the communication that I make to people. So when I interact with people and when I make them understand things in a, easy manner, I think that's something that I have in my control. So the blue circle is that I can, at least with people with whom I am interacting, I make sure that I interact in the right way and give them complete, honest information. Dr. Sandeep M. Kumar, excellent talk, seen after 30 years. So someone talking about communication to healthcare sector that had been lacking till now. That is the reason of aggression towards doctor in India. This should be in the curriculum of medical and paramedical education in India as it's same here in Western countries. Example, Calgary, Cambridge consultation technique. Very true, Dr. Sandeep. I fully agree with you. And for the last 10 years, I have conducted around 1,500 programs around this. So I'm traveling across the country, working on the communication skills of doctors, nurses, and paramedical staff. And luckily, I have also been involved with medical colleges where they are making me do these programs for the MBBS and postgraduate students. And the good news is that MCI has revised its curriculum. Now, of course, it is NMC. In 2019, they have actually introduced a module called ATCOM module, that is Attitude, Ethics, and Communication module. And with the medical students, now this is being imparted. So I hope it will come, it will be visible in the maybe next 10 years or so. But yes, for paramedical and other healthcare professionals, we definitely need to sensitize them about communication. Somebody has said, after a request, patient is not willing to go to quarantine, what to do? Is there any therapeutic dialogue? Assertion is the right communication technique, where your selection of words is suitable, they are respectful, decent. Your tone of voice has to be firm. Look into the patient's eyes. Make it very clear to it that this is something that you cannot escape. You have to agree to it. It's for your safety, it's for your family's safety, and it is for the safety of your society. So this is something you'll have to take with a pinch of salt. It's better if you agree with it. So I have demonstrated you a part of communication. I have nowhere used any foul language. I have not been indecent. I have not been aggressive. I have not used any aggressive body language. This would come with practice. I know we are not used to this kind of assertion, but the day you will start practicing, trust me, we'll have better response from the patient. Okay. Next is, can you please provide recording of all recorded webinar? I think PHFI is going to share this with everybody.
Yeah, we are going to do that.
Yeah. And then then Dr. Archana has asked a question, is there possibility of increase in patient with psychiatric illness due to COVID-19? Yes, there is a possibility, as it is mental health in our country is not addressed at any level. Even when patients come with very clear symptoms, we normally treat them as symptoms and we, get away with this. We can expect patients with a lot of this thing, but I would say, why focus on that? Let's focus on what we can do right now to prevent it. And if we can address the anxiety, first we have to stay calm, learn to stay, in present, and then also relieve the patients of their anxiety and address the situation in the best possible manner. Then hopefully we'll not have to see so many patients with psychiatric illness. Rather than focusing on tomorrow, I'll focus on today. Okay. Then the next question is, okay, such a great presentation, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Manikante Vijayarvani. Okay, there's an anonymous is saying, what are legal aspects in communication documentation with respect to coronavirus? See, the protocols that we are expected to follow for documenting all the communication otherwise have to be followed here. I don't think there is anything extra to it, but I think Dr. Sandeep can answer this question better. Dr. Sandeep, are you there?
Yeah, ma'am, I'm there, ma'am.
Yeah, so I don't think there is any other additional document that has been asked. So whatever has to be, like we follow for other patients, we have to.
Yeah.
So that is okay. So, okay, Dr. Kim has asked a question. Madam, can you please elaborate on social triage? Okay, what I mean by, although I know you will not find this word in dictionary because that's a term coined by me, social triage. So when I say social triage, I mean when you interact with the patient and their family, try to observe the patient and the family, how aggressive they are, how likely are they to become aggressive. For example, people may not have any social importance, but they have a lot of nuisance value. They can misbehave with you, they can create ruckus at your place, they can come and break things. So if you can identify them and carefully, appropriately handle them, not be scared of them, but address them, interact with them, develop rapport with them, address their concern. If their needs or questions are legitimate, please fulfill that, so that they have this trust that whatever best is possible is being done. So social triaging is more to identify people who need to be given little extra, attention or care so that they don't trouble us later on. Okay, Madam, how to deal with pediatric cases? Again, I think winning their trust is important, but I think at the same time in pediatric cases, it is the parents will be more apprehensive. So you will have to address their apprehension so that, I mean, the way we have talked about other cases, similarly, you will have to, work with them. So next question is by Dr. Shweta Sharma. What do you recommend for those of us who are not actually at the front line, but have the urge to be involved? How do we address that internal conflict? Oh, that's another good question. Yes, many of us are not at the front line, but if you decide to do something, one is if you are a healthcare professional and if you get in touch with your local healthcare delivery system, people involved in your system, you can actually, I mean, there was a call also, I believe, recently that in case if there are people, who are not in the government sector but are wanting to serve, so you can find out in what way you can contribute and, participate in that. Next question is, okay, it is by
Anonymous attendee.
anonymous attendee. How do you suggest the healthcare community tackles the medical misinformation and unverified management tactics being spread on social media? Again, a good question. If you will put this in the yellow circle, you will actually not care much for it. But if you will put it in blue circle, anybody who comes with this kind of information to you, you will not be aggressive with that, but you will take little time and just explain to the person that this is an unauthenticated information. So you can tell them not to, kind of, for example, for certain treatment modalities, they are talking about some domestic this thing, or some Ayurvedic, or some allopathic, or some homeopathic. Since we don't know, but we don't have to get annoyed about it, that how do you think this can help? I would rather say, I'm really sorry, I have no idea about it. I am not sure whether it will work or not. You will have to check with somebody who is from the same subject. So in a very smart way, you have answered the question without being aggressive. Okay. Dr. Rajesh Day has said, very nice deliberation, ma'am. Thanks a lot. Thanks to Dr. Sandeep Balla. Definitely. Well, thanks to Dr. Sandeep Balla to have organized this. Okay. Nilay Patel has asked, in current protocol in India, COVID positive patients are kept in a separate facility designated by local government body. There are many asymptomatic positive patients amongst us. While government advertisement shows if you have cough, cold with fever, then may you have chance of COVID, otherwise no need to worry. Now, these large asymptomatic patients give excuse that we have no symptoms, how can we be positive? It is fake. Some propaganda against community. How to deal with this? Government should inform extensively now regarding asymptomatic positive is completely possible. One can be COVID positive. See, again, at the government level, what they do, it's their call. But when somebody comes to you, of course, you can help them see these reports where you can say patient can be corona positive and still may be asymptomatic, but can infect others. Again, stay calm and answer them. I think that would help. Dr. Pinky has asked a question. Madam, I received calls from few patients during lockdown about sadness, negative thoughts, especially those who are staying alone. How to help them besides giving suggestions to get engaged with exercise, watching TV, etc. Do you think besides communication, they need some special medical help also? Definitely, people who are feeling sad all the time, or they have negative thought process, or who appear very anxious, or they even report, suicidal thoughts, they require help, and lot of groups are, surfacing, who are providing free counseling services for patients with the patients in the corona time. So you can definitely, ask them to take help from those services. Okay. Where are we? I'm really sorry. Every time.
Anonymous attendee, 6:05 p.m.
I don't know why every time I touch the screen, it goes to number 1.
So you accidentally scrolling it, I guess.
Yeah,
It's okay, man. It's anonymous attendee, 6:05 p.m.
6:05. Okay, 1 minute.
Could you please suggest how we can manage our stress onto your own family?
Yeah. Could you please suggest how we can manage our stress onto our own family? See, definitely, I think I have talked a lot about it. One, focus on positive things. Meditation would help in case if you are in habit of meditating. Deep breathing exercises will help, because again, that will divert your mind and will bring more mindfulness. Also, enough sleep, proper food. Watching something interesting also can help. I think a lot of jokes and other things are being floated. In a way, it's good. It actually relieves you, of that stress. Talking positive to your family, staying connected with them, and also showing the positive side of it will help them also, be stress-free. S. Nair, excellent talk on psychological aspect of medicines. Thanks, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir, for appreciating. Now, how to deal with the person or patient who doesn't believe in modern medicine, especially now where there is no definitive treatment. I feel that if we try to validate it with facts, that will only strengthen his or her disbelief in modern medicine. See, there will be people who will not have believe in modern medicine. We don't have to spend time in convincing them. What has to be done will have to be done. I think we have to follow the protocols here. But of course, while doing it, our approach has to be non-aggressive and assertive. Okay, kindly share all the videos. I think it is going to be shared with all the participants. Dr. Pinky Roy says, wonderful presentation, madam, helpful not only for today but always in dealing with patients. Definitely, this is what is the agenda. That please use it for all your, with all your patients. Shailendra Nagori has said how to deal with daily government orders and government officials. Again, this is something. If this is something that is not unavoidable, I better accept it. So I can think of that serenity prayer that we all read sometime. God, give me courage to change the things that I can change. Give me patience or serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, and give me wisdom to discern the two. That means if I cannot change, then I have to accept it. If the government order and government officials are part and parcel of the system and team and protocol, we have to find ways to work with them. Maybe if you have people working with you, delegate the responsibility to them, share the responsibility, prepare them for this. You have doctors, nurses, other staff working with you, train them to come forward and use their abilities in handling these situations. Okay. Communication per se is the most important aspect in healthcare these days, not only in this COVID-19 times. How do we as administrators or hospital head get around our doctors to pay heed to this aspect? Dr. Russell Laurie. A very pertinent question. I think I get to hear this question almost every time I do a program. Only one thing that I can say here, and if you can apply it, trust me, things can start changing. Be a very good role model. If you want to change somebody, you have to demonstrate how to do it. If my own communication style is not appropriate, I will not be able to get good communication from my people around me. There's a saying in Hindi, Jaisa Raja Vaisi Praja. So you as an administrator or the hospital head, you really need to have excellent communication and interpersonal skills. If you treat your team well, if you respect your subordinates, if you handle your nurses well, if you handle your support staff with respect, if you listen to them, if you're considerate with them, trust me, it will not take much time to change anybody. I would not blame the doctors who are maybe who are in their 50s or 60s, because that is what they have learned when they were students. Things are changing now, so for them it is difficult to change. But if we want to change the culture of the place, collectively we all have to work towards it. So make this as an agenda for your organization, that I want to change the culture of my place. I'm reminded of Cleveland Clinic. I don't know if you have read about the history of Cleveland Clinic. There was a time when Cleveland Clinic was about to close. And that was the time the CEO of that hospital decided to, change the complete culture of that workplace. And today it is one of the leading hospitals, just because the CEO of the hospital realized that we have to work in a create a very different work milieu. So it's a very challenging thing, but once you decide, I'm sure you can do it. Yeah. Dr. V. Kumar. How much is the possibility of depression pandemic after this much of destruction in developed and developing countries? Again, it all depends on our mindset. I'll say, if each one of us decide that I am neither going to go into depression and I'm not going to let people around me go into depression. So rather than focusing on who all are going to go into depression, I'd rather focus on how can I prevent it from happening. And this is a message for everybody, because see, you are going to influence the thought process of a lot of people, your own family member, your neighborhood, your staff, your team, and people you come across. So you all need to have a very strong mindset. When I studied Sanskrit when I was very young kid, I don't remember any of the Sanskrit shlokas, but I remember one shloka, and that was Ishwaram yatya karoti shobhdev karoti. So whatever he does, there's always a blessing in disguise. I'm sure there is some reason behind it, but if we look and focus our energy on the positive, I think we can all come out of it in a very good shape, but we require everybody's effort to do it. Excellent talk on communication. Thank you so much. Again, it has gone up. I'm sorry. I need to. Okay. Wonderful session. Thank you so much. Sushma Trivedi, thank you so much for appreciating. Dr. Gauri says empathetic communication in telemedicine. Wonderful. Again, a good question. Yes, in telemedicine, in case if you are in video conference with your patient, then all the three things are playing a role. Three things, if you can remember: your words, your tone of voice, and your body language. If you're in video conferencing with your patient, your facial expressions are visible, tone of voice is heard by the patient, selection of word is done by you if you're doing it appropriately. In case you're not in video conference, if it is just audio, again, your tone of voice and your selection of word can play a big role. So empathy is something we just have to be mindful of. That's all. Shimpa has said, excellent session, Dr. Aneja. However, my concern, are there online or telephonic counselors for those patients or persons who are struggling with the lockdown restriction? Yes, lot of groups have come up with the free services for patients or anybody in general public who require counseling services. Even we have floated one group. We are around 100 of counselors, spread across the country, and we are trying to provide services. You have my number. You can share my number with them, and I can share them the number of my group who will get in touch with them and provide the service. And it is not just for the patients. I would request even doctors, nurses, paramedical staff who are not able to handle their stress, anxiety, fear, or depressive thoughts, please take help, take professional help. There is nothing wrong. Like we have physical illnesses, we have mental illnesses or mental issues. They should be addressed. They should not be left unaddressed. Okay. And where are we?
6:11 p.m.
6:11. Okay, that helps me really. Okay. Again, thank you, madam. I think this was the best talk of this session. As you said, being positive, patience and perseverance will win the battle of Corona. Thank you so much. I think thank you so much for your appreciation. And if I've been able to spread this message across, I think my purpose of being here has been served. Okay. Then very appropriate presentation at right time of Corona, but holds good for all times. Thanks a lot, Madam Dr. Balaji. Thank you so much, Dr. Balaji, for appreciating. I think we all require this, feedback and appreciation and acknowledgement to stay focused. Please give your feedback in also helping us improve our presentation. In case if we have missed on something, in case you think something more need to be added, please give your feedback to PHFI. I'm sure they will, send this feedback to all these speakers. Then Runa has said very important and interesting presentation. Oh, thank you so much, Runa. Then where are we? Please tell me time. 6:12. 6:12. I congratulate you for a wonderful presentation. Shailesh Parikh, thank you so much, Shailesh. Again, your words are very important to us. Maha says, do you have any advice for the government to make general public to cooperate more? I'm sure they must be doing their efforts. And they haven't asked me for any advice. In case if they ask me, definitely I'll try to see what help I can provide. But since I'm talking to you, I can say, let each one of us do our bit of duty, and I'm sure at the end we will have a positive result. Then time batao ji, kahan par jana hai?
6:14 p.m.
6:14. Okay. Okay.
Dr. Manikante.
Yeah, Dr. Manikante Vijaya has said, most of the attacks on doctors are happening maybe due to miscommunication between doctor and patient, relatives, as well as patient themselves. Being in charge or being a senior doctor, how can we calm down such people when they are not in a condition to listen? If the conversation earlier was handled by one of our junior doctors. I can give you few points. One, Practice social triaging. If you can identify that this patient cannot be handled by junior doctors, please make sure to keep in touch with the family. That is one thing. Second is train your doctors to communicate in assertive tone and non-aggressive tone with the patient and their family. Third, make it a habit to update the family, because their major concern is they want to know what is my patient's condition. And it is our responsibility to update the family by all means, especially patients who are critical, especially those who are likely to die. Make sure that you update them more frequently than other patients, because then they can't say that we were not told. All the communication, if possible, should be done under CCTV, but that does not mean CCTV is kind of a proof, but that is, they will know that there is somebody who's observing us or is knowing. And then also please address their concern. Sometimes even their legitimate requirements and demands are not met, and that is the time they become frustrated with us. And please remember, once they lose the patient, they have nothing more to lose, and that is where they become aggressive with us. So the responsibility we have is to do it much before the patient dies. If you have done your homework well, you will never experience aggression from them. Okay, then next was communication modules are now in medical curriculum. Yes, I agree with you, Shimpa, Dr. Shimpa. They are now part of the medical curriculum. Then Shailesh Parikh said, properly by all practitioners, it will reduce attacks by mobs and family members. Yes, communication is the only key to prevent attack. And we need to understand now the communication needs of the patients have changed. They want to participate in care. They want to know what is happening. They want to understand what more options do I have. So we have to now move on from the doctor-centric patient care to patient-centric patient care. So we have to bring a change in our mindset. Anonymous attendee has asked, ma'am, how to deal with children at this time? What advice to give them and how much information to provide? I think if you're talking about interacting with your own children, treat them as individuals. Talk to them, listen to them, allow them to ask questions, answer their questions in as honest manner as possible, because in any case, nothing is hidden from them and they know the reality. So it's always good to tell them. With that, it is important to help them know what precaution they are supposed to be taking and how religiously we have to follow those precautions. If you are able to communicate to them, then I'm sure they will understand the importance of following the precaution. Then there's another question: do we get a certificate for attending the webinars? Dr. Sandeep, you have to answer this.
Yeah.
They'll be getting a certificate?
Yeah, they are going to get the certificates.
Yes, you are going to get the certificate. Okay. HC Manjunath has asked a question. Madam, how long the pandemic may go on according to your view? Again, I am not the right person to answer this. My prayer to Almighty is to end it as early as possible, but then let's all be prepared for whatever comes. We will all face it with pride and with lot of, like warriors will face it. Dr. M. Wasim has asked another question: role of visual art, painting in times of corona for mental health and wellness. See if you can get it. If there is time, if there's opportunity, if you have facilities, nothing like it, but I'm not very sure how many of the healthcare practitioners would like to focus on it. Communication as such has also never been taken a topic very seriously. Let's be honest about it. I mean, I have had places where people think, oh, I can talk, so why do I need to learn communication? So I do not know how much, but yes, we all know that painting and visual art and art is a therapy. Art is a therapy. And in a lot of mental health setups, people use it as a therapeutic technique. Moving on to the next one. Even with children, this can be used as somebody had asked me for children. So with children, we can use it as a therapy. So where are we?
Dr. H.C. Manjunath, 6:18 p.m.
So, madam, what advice be given to pediatric age group? Again, if you can engage them rather than giving a direct advice, of course, precautions can be explained through audiovisual ways, purpose can be explained, but the best way is to keep them distracted from, worrying about it, keep them busy, get them involved in the household work, let them do some art and craft work, give them some free time to play, some yoga, some meditation can be done as a family together. That can be, that can be a good way to connect with your family. Dr. Sandeep has asked a question: while communicating with the patient and their relatives, it is good to be honest and admit openly that you do not know this helps in building trust. Very true. I think we are not superhuman being. We are not God. So let's admit, I don't know. Whatever knowledge I have, I am trying to apply it. I don't know everything about it. I think it's a good thing. Parul says, thank you, ma'am, for such a good presentation on communication with corona affected patient. Thank you so much, Parul, for your comments. Okay, again, I've gone back to the first one. Now
6:19 p.m.
6:19. Okay.
Dr. Deepthi.
1 second. Yeah, there I am. 6:19. Dr. Deepthi says, nice session, ma'am. If everyone can listen to your session here, there would be more people who can understand the importance of quarantine. Thanks a lot, ma'am, for beautiful session. Thank you so much, Deepthi, for appreciating. Dr. Ashok Kumar, thanks for encouraging words. We all need them and it's right time. Yes, I fully agree. We all need to help each other, guide each other. Same responsibility now lies with you to encourage your team, to encourage your staff, because even they may be discouraged, confused, upset, unhappy with situation. So now I'm passing the, what do you call that? Passing the, what do we do? I'm passing the responsibility to you to take this forward. Yeah. So Dr. Rajesh says, is communication should be both ways? Definitely. I think that is something we have to really, understand. We normally think with patient, I am supposed to talk. No, that's not true. We have to allow the patient to speak. We have to listen to the patient. We have to address their concern. Even in decision making, we have to take their concern. It's not just about corona. In general, I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next question. 6:20. Dr. Rajesh Kumar. Okay, that is done. Dr. Rajesh says, how to deal with the aggression that emanates as seen in the few incidents reported where healthcare workers have been stoned. Again, a very good question. See, one, if you know that there can be an aggressive reaction in a situation, please be prepared for it, proactively handle it. For example, if it's a larger group of people whom you're going to handle, so rather than directly approaching them, it's better to have some community leaders who are understanding of your intention, who agree with you, who are cooperative with you, who can do the mediation part and fill the communication gap. And then you go and get involved. But in case if you are stuck in a situation where people are acting aggressive, this one-on-one communication may not be of much help to you, because when it is mob, their way of communication will be very different. They will not listen to you because now they are carried with one emotion, that is anger. So that is where you have to actually ensure your safety and move away from that situation. Where is your institution? It is okay. And what all courses are available in your institute? It is in Delhi, but practically I'm traveling all across the country because it is usually in-house that I conduct the program. Kindly share all PPTs and presentation. Yes, we will be sharing it with you. All are excellent and useful. Thanks a lot to all the speakers. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, ma'am, and thanks PHFI, excellent selection of topics. Thank you so much for excellent speech. Then, ma'am, if symptoms of coronavirus has arisen, and if the hospital facility are so much far, how can we manage these at home, especially breathlessness? Again, I think this, I'm not the right person to answer this because it's again a technical question. So it should be dealt by a doctor who should be handling it. I would request Dr. Sandeep Bhalla to see how we can answer this question. Nice presentation. And then, as our knowledge is not complete till now about COVID-19 pandemic and update is gaining every day, I would suggest updated session may be needed shortly. PHFI is requested to think over this matter. Allah, you have to have it every week. So that's all right. I think it's a good idea. I know
it's a good idea, ma'am. Let's see how we can.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So which अब कहाँ पर मुझे time बताओ?
6:39.
How many questions are left?
One, I guess 5, 6 questions. No.
6. Okay, 1 second.
6:39.
6:39. I'm trying.
Lots of aggression against medical and paramedical staff by the public.
Yeah, lots of aggression against medical and paramedical staff by the public due to COVID-19. What needs to be done? I think the whole session is about communication. See, very important is to win their trust. very important is to help them understand that we are doing everything for them. We do everything, but we don't communicate. So this is something like winking at a girl in dark, which you know she does not know. So while you're doing everything for the patient or their family or for the society, let us make it public. Let them know this is being done for them. But again, when we are telling this, we don't have to be aggressive or we don't have to be authoritative. We just have to help them understand, see whatever possible is being done for you. Dr. Sandeep says, Dr. Indu, keep doing awesome work on communication. You are ambassador of change to get old image of healthcare workers in India, and this going to stop violence and aggression towards. Definitely. See, whatever, again, I am a sparrow in that picture with a small water in my beak. I'm trying to, extinguish the fire. I do not know how much change I will be able to bring, but trust me, this has become the mission of my life and purpose of my existence, and I am so passionate about it, and I'm really hoping that it will come and things will start changing because of it. And I do get a lot of positive feedback from people who have done the training, and they say that they see a sea change in their relationship with their patients. So I request everybody to start practicing it, and the day you will start working on it, you will not require any training. Everything is there with you. Only thing is we don't consider patient as the beneficiary of this care. So we need to just bring that change in our this thing. So very wise story of sparrow and tree laborers and 2 circles and how to manage stress tips. Thanks, PHFI. Yes, definitely. Even I like the stories that I share. Are we done with this, or there are many more? Okay.
Last 3 questions.
I hope it's included in examination at exit. Yes, now I think they have changed it. Now it is assessed. Earlier it was not being assessed. And definitely for all foreign exams, this is the major thing that they actually, they look for. R.S. Rathi has asked, communication is being taken very seriously by medical professionals, as we can see so many queries in this session. Thank you, ma'am, for making it so interesting for us. Thank you so much. I think I'm so happy that now people are taking it seriously. And so many, how many people are attending the session? Vishnu, can you tell me?
Ma'am, 260.
Imagine. So if 260 people are attending the program, so it's very encouraging for me also to know that people are now taking it seriously. I really hope it goes on. Any more questions?
I think
ma'am, that's it. That's it, ma'am.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, ma'am, with this we have come to the second series of COVID-19 e-workshop webinar series. Though we tried our level best since last 10 days, because we have compiled all this thing within 10 days during the first lockdown period. And then we started this particular series. First series we started on 6th of April. And today is the 15th April. We completed 2 series of our primary care physicians within a span of 10 days itself. After making 10 days, then next day we implemented it. I think it went very, very well, but I think we are very upward to look forward to get the critical feedbacks from all our colleagues. Though we tried within this span that whatever the majority of the things related to COVID-19, we should be able to cover it up by giving you the clinical change, by giving you the management change, by giving you the epidemiology change, and by giving you the other change of communication in such type of crisis movement. There may be ample of things which we have left, and we hope that once we get your feedback, maybe that will help us to modify our next webinar series. So with this, I will say thank you to all the colleagues, those who are joined from the different parts of country today. Indu Arneja for helping us in this webinar, because this is the most you can say one of the best. People have liked this webinar. In the previous series also, people have appreciated this particular webinar also, and people are liking, because this particular topic has lost the tints in so many years. And now you can see the road rages which are happening. the anxiety among the people and the fight to the doctors and the hospitals, day-to-day things. I think here the communication plays a greater role. Today also in Moradabad, there was a stone pelting for the doctors and as well as cops, those who have gone for doing the corona test.
Yeah.
So we have to learn from how the communication is one of the best way to percolate the right messages. With this, I would say good evening to all of you. Stay safe, stay home, all the best. And we all pray that we should act as a frontline warriors, fighters, rather than as spectators. With this, on behalf of PHFI, thankful to all of you for joining this series. All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.